Well, welcome to my shop again. I've had a lot of viewers tell me that they were just starting to do segment turnings, or they were going to start to do segment turnings. So I thought I'd do a quick video on the very basics. And of course the very basics is making segmented rings. That's the building block of a segmented turning. And there's many kinds of rings, different ones, thick ones, normal sized ones, ones made out of different materials or with spacers in them. The whole purpose of the ring, of course, is to build up the segmented turning. The ring is basically, you're looking for a specific diameter, you're looking for a specific width that you need, and the most important thing you're looking for is tight joints. All these rings have tight joints. Every one of them. Even the big ones have tight joints. So how do we achieve this? Well, first of all, let me say, you can make a segmented ring with any number of segments. You can make them with 5 segments, you can make them with 10 segments, you can make them with 16 or 20 segments or 80 segments if you want. The basic segment, where did I put my little drawing? I put it somewhere here. I'm going to have to find it. This is a basic segment right here. And I've got it drawn out. And the basic segment, of course, like this is your cut length. Your cut length determines the overall diameter of the segment ring. These are the cut angles. The cut angles, of course, is necessary to make the segments come together with closed tight joints. And that depends on the number of segments what the angle is. And this, of course, is the width. The width determines, of course, just how wide it's going to be. And that, of course, is determined by your thickness of your turning and the angle that it's running through. If you want a real shallow angle, you make a segment like this. So, if you're cutting a ring with 8 segments and your cut length is off, let's say, by a 32nd of an inch, then you've got 8 segments all off by a 32nd of an inch. The whole circumference will be off, finished by 1/4 of an inch. And with 8 segments, that won't be enough to hardly affect you. But if you're cutting segments for 32 segments per ring, and you're all off by 1/32 of an inch, when you're finished, your diameter, or your circumference, excuse me, will be off by 1 inch. And that'll throw your diameter off enough so that you can tell it. So that the larger number of segments you're cutting means the more accurate you got to be. And the same thing with the angles. If you're cutting a ring with 8 segments and your angle's off 0.1 degrees, you're cutting both sides of the segment, so that means you're making 16 cuts. So your total error would be 1.6 degrees, and you'd have a 1.6 degree opening between the segments somewhere. It's easy enough to correct. However, if you're cutting 32 segment ring and you're off by 1.1 degree, when you get done, you've got 64 cuts around it. You're going to be off by 6.4 degrees. You're going to have a gap somewhere. That's a little harder to correct. Now, making segment rings, There's basically two ways to do it that I know of. One is the half ring glue up method, and there's two ways to do that. And the other is the single glue up ring method. So today I'm going to go over both of them and show you what the difference is and why I prefer one over the other. A couple of things I need to explain here. To do this, I'm using some cherry wood, some cherry shorts I got. And I'm ripping pieces off the edge. Here's a piece of it. It's about 7/8 inch thick and it's about 1 inch wide. I'm going to be using that to cut all the segments for the rings. The glue I'm using is tight bound 2. I know it's in a tight bound 1 bottle, but I put tight bound 2 in it when I refill it. So it is tight bound 2 glue. And tight bound 2 is actually sets up faster than most people will like to believe. When I glue 2 segments together, I'll let them set for about 3 minutes or so before I go on to the next step and glue 4 segments together and then 8. And it'll only take, just like I said, about 3 minutes. When I glue the half rings together, I'll let them set for about 10 minutes before I sand the ends. And then when I glue the whole rings together, I'll let them set between 10 and 15 minutes before I run them through the drum sander. And that's all the time it takes for tight bound 2 to set up if you have good glue joints. If you have good tight glue joints, that's all you need. If you don't have good tight glue joints, you can let it set for 24 hours and you still won't have a good glue joint. So if you get good glue joints, it sets up a whole lot faster than what most people believe. 15 seconds clamp time at the most, and 15 minutes setup time when you're ready to work it. So that's what I'm going to be using to do these. But first of all, let's cut segments. There's 2 ways that I know of to cut segments, basically. One's with a table saw and the other's with a miter saw. I personally use a table saw. The biggest reason being I don't have a miter saw. I don't really have a need for it. But I have a fairly good table saw, and I use a 80-tooth carbide blade that gives me good clean cuts. So I'm going over to table saw and show you how I cut segments and why I do it that way. I'm over at the table saw now. What I have got on the table saw is simply a sled with an adjustable fence. It's all you need. I've seen on the internet some fancy rigs where they set them up and cut segments. You don't really need it. To set my fence, I've got a pivot point here, and I've got all the angles I want marked out here. So that's effectively a protractor that's this long. And when I set it, I get very accurate cuts. So that's how I set the fence. Right here, I've got a piece that fits in the slot here. It's nothing but a guide, some thin plywood, and an angle mounted here that's right next to the blade. Get a better look at this right here. You can see it. There's an angle, there's a guide, and it fits right up next to the blade. The reason for this angle next to the blade is so that when I cut the segments, they fall away from the blade. That's all it's for. Relatively easy to build, and it slides right in, just sits in there. Now for my stop block, I have got the stop block that just attaches to my fence. That's it. I want to adjust the stop block, I move the fence a little bit. Pure simplicity. That's all it is. So today, I'm going to be cutting segments for 3 rings. We're going to make 3 rings. They're going to be 16 segments per ring. And they're going to be 7 inches in diameter. So the first thing I got to do is set my fence for 16 segment cuts, which is 11.25 degrees. 11.25 degrees. I've got my pivot here. And 11.25 degrees, I've simply got a mark right here. And I put it on that mark. And I will get very accurate cuts. I set that mark with a digital angle finder. Now then, to cut them for a 7-inch ring, they've got to have a cut length of 1.4 inches. I got a piece here that's the same width as my blade kerf. I'm going to put right here. I've got this set to 1.4 inches and I'm going to set it here. Bring my stop block right up to it. Now then, what I always do for accuracy is take a piece of scrap material, cut it, and check the cut length. If it's not right, I'll readjust it until I get it right. It's just a shade bit too long. So I'm going to adjust it down just a bit and cut another piece. Okay, that one I like. Maybe not. Maybe I'm going to adjust it up just a shade bit. No, it's good. I'm going to leave it there. Oh, I don't want to throw that away. Now I've seen on the internet, like I said, rigs where they made to cut segments. They say it's fast, but this is really fast. All I have to do is cut one and flip it over and cut another. So I'm going to turn on the vacuum system. It's going to be noisy. Then I'll cut a couple of quick segments to show you how it's done and how fast I can cut them. I'm going to go ahead and cut enough segments for 3 rings of 16 segments. I've got enough segments cut now to make 3 rings of 16 segments each, which I'm going to do. Now, I cut them on a decent saw with an 80 tooth carbide blade, and you can see that I've got a nice smooth flat surface on them. nice cut surface, and I could glue them together. Of course, this one here ain't a real segment, but this one is, and get a good glue joint. And a lot of people do that, and they get good glue joints, acceptable. But one day, I cut 4 pieces, glued 2 of them together, took the other 2 and I sanded them and glued them together. When they were dry, I cleaned the joints up and compared them, and after that I've always been sanding them. So what I'm going to do is sand all the sides. It's real quick. To do that, I'm going to use a disc sander. I've got a simple sled that fits on it, and I've got push sticks. This one's for the 16 segments at a 22.5 degree angle, and I'm going to just give them a real quick sanding. I've got other push sticks, of course, for other angles. This is for 24. This is for 12 segments. I got a bunch of them. So I'm going to take right now and I'm going to sand this block real quick just to show how it's done. I don't know if we can get a good angle there or not. Just that quick. I've sanded both sides down and got them extra smooth and flat. And I'm going to do all the rest of the pieces and then get back. I've got them all sanded now. We're going to make segmented rings. Basically, there's 2 ways to make a segmented ring. There's the half ring glue up, and then there's the full ring glue up. In a half ring glue up, you glue them up into 2 half rings, and then you true up the ends and make a full ring. Now there's 2 ways to make a half ring glue up. The first way is to glue them up first into 2s, like this, then glue the 2s into 4s, like that, and then glue the 4s into 8, make a half ring. Of course, that's with 16 rings. If you got 8 rings, you glue them into 2s and then 4s, and you'd have a half ring, etc. So what I'm going to do is glue all these into 2s first. And to do that, I'm just going to put a little glue on them and use a rub joint. Just a small amount of glue. Smear it all around, get it everywhere. And then rub them back and forth till they get resistance. Line them up, of course, and let them dry. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue them all up into 2s. I've got them all glued together now into pairs. So what I'm going to do now is just glue the pairs into 4s. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Get them all glued into 4s. Just take a minute to do that. Make sure they're lined up good. There we go. There's a 4. Let me get the rest done here real quick. I got them all glued into 4s now. And I only let them sit for just 2 or 3 minutes before I glue them again. It don't take long. Once they start sticking, you put them together, they set up real fast. So now I'm going to glue them into the 8s or the half ring. Get a good rub joint. Position them real good. Get the extra glue out of the way so I can see where the joint is. Get them lined up right. Get that out of the way. Put the second one and we'll have two half rings here in just a second. Make sure that joint's lined up. Make sure it's tight. And we have two half rings now. Now before I show you how to hook the half rings together, I'm going to show you the other way to make half rings. I've got 16 segments set up here, and I've seen on the internet where someone said you can put them like this, put glue between each joint except for these two joints, and then clamp them up and you'll have two half rings. So clamp them up like this. And you'll have two half rings. And then you can square up the joints you didn't glue later. Well, that's true except for one problem. I guarantee you the gap won't be where the unglued joints are. It'll be where a glued joint is. So you're actually accomplishing nothing by doing this. But there is a trick to make this work. What you do to make this work is cut a couple of dowels. I'm just using these dowels. Put them in the joints that you don't have the glue in. Put them right in the middle of the joints. It ain't going to stay for me until I tighten it up. Well, then glue them up like this. And get the dowels in the center of the joint. Let me tighten this up so we can take a good look. Let me tighten it up here a second. Get some force on it. Make sure this is right. Okay. Now this is what we've got. We've got 8 segments on each side, and we got dowels here. The dowels will allow the segments to pivot here so that it tightens up all the rest of the joints, and we can glue up 2 good half rings. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to glue 2 half rings with dowels between them, rather than gluing them into pieces of 2s and 4s and 8s. Let me take this off, and we'll go ahead and glue them up. So I'm going to put glue on all the joints but those 2 that are exactly opposite from each other. See if I can get some glue out of this bottle. I'll have to put new glue in this bottle pretty soon. We'll have to refill it. Getting a little bit low. I think I've been making too many videos. Okay, let's put some glue on these. Just a light coat's fine. Okay, we got glue on all the joints except those 2. Put the clamp around them. Put the dowels in. this thing up tight. See if I can squeeze it down some. Okay, now let's tighten her down some. Make sure all edges are lined up. Make sure they're lined up good. Tighten her down some more. Ah. Get them all down good. Okay, we have got 2 half rings glued up. We'll just let the glue dry for a while on them. I don't really like this method at all either. But we'll let them dry and we'll have 2 half rings. The ends on them have all been trued up now. So all we got to do is put these 2 together and clamp them. We'll do them one at a time. So I'm just going to show one. It don't take much glue. Put a little glue on that. Put the clamp on it. Make sure they come together right. Tighten her down. Let her set for a few minutes. We'll glue up the other one the same way. And we'll have our first 2 rings made. We've got 4 half rings now. These 2 were made by gluing 2 pieces and then 4 pieces and then 8 pieces. Now we've got to true up the ends. These come out pretty true, pretty close. And glue them together. And these 2 were made by using the dowel pins. And again, they're pretty close. But we got to true them up. To do that, I'm going to use the disc sander and just slightly sand each edges till they're true. In order to know when the edges are true, I'm going to chalk them. Then I'm going to hold them up against the disc sander and sand them real lightly till the chalk's gone. Simple as that. There's one. I'm going to do the other 3 now. We've got 2 rings glued up now, both made by the half ring glue up method. I'm going to set these aside for right now. And we're going into the 3rd method, or the 2nd method, which is the single ring glue up, which I much prefer. It does have a bit of a learning curve, yes, but I like it a lot better. It's quicker, and I can get a flatter ring, and I'll show you why when I do it. First thing I'm going to do, we got these 16 segments all sanded, ready to go. First thing I'm going to do is dry clamp them. Dry clamp them good and tight. And I'm going to hold them up to the light and look for gaps in any of the joints. Now this one's good, simply because I got my tools adjusted. But when you first start out, you're going to get gaps. These are exaggerated, but if you look and you get a gap at the top, that means they ain't cut at enough of an angle. If you get a gap here at the bottom, that means they're cut at too much of an angle. So if I get a gap, let's say I get a gap at the top, so I need more angle on them. I'm not going to recut 16 pieces. I may adjust my tools a little bit, but I ain't going to recut 16 pieces. What I'm going to do is pull out one segment. And I'm going to mark that segment so I'll know which one it was. Just put a little mark on it. And I'm going to chalk one side of it. And I'm going to adjust the angle on this piece. So what I'm going to do is use the sled and the push stick see if I can get a good shot here. I want more angle, so what I'm going to do is put a shim right here to increase the angle of the sanding cut. If I wanted less angle, I'd put the shim down here and I would sand it. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to increase the angle on it, although I don't really need that piece. And I'm just going to sand off all the chalk marks on it, and I will increase the angle on it. So I'm going to do that right now. Just sand her down and increase the angle on that a little bit. Just a light sanding. You can see there's still a little bit of chalk left, so I have to sand it a little bit more. You can see it's cutting the inside more than it is the edge, which is increasing the angle on it. Just that simple, and I got it increased, and then I put it back in the ring and check. Now if there's a really big gap, I would pick 2 pieces opposite each other and sand them. It don't make any difference which piece you sand. But if I had a really big gap, I'd sand 2. So this ring here is ready to go. And that's how you adjust the angles on them. And it isn't really that hard. But again, like I says, it takes a little bit of learning curve. Know how much to sand them. Know whether you need to sand 2 pieces or just 1 to get it right. But in effect, this ring's ready to go. And I'll show you a big advantage of doing the single ring glue up. It's important when you're making a feature ring. So let's take the clamp off. Of course, after I sand it and put it back in, I'd hold it up to the light again and check it just to make sure till I got them right. But we're going to glue this ring up now. Don't really take as much glue as a lot of people think it does. You get them where they fit, they don't take a lot of glue. Put a little glue on them. Okay. Put a little glue here, put the last piece in. Last piece I'll put glue on both sides, simply because I might have to slide it in. It tends to wipe the glue off sometimes. That's the only reason. Now I'm going to clamp them down. So you see the single ring glue up's going pretty fast. Make sure I got this right over a joint. This has got to be over a joint. Okay. Let's tighten her down some. Check and make sure they're all lined up correctly. Raise this up some. Yeah, get the string raised up a little. I want the string right in the middle. Now, using a single ring glue up, what I can do is put the top clamp on and clamp them down to keep them flat. Like I said, this is important when you're doing a feature ring because you want all pieces of the feature ring to line up. So I'll just tighten this down. Just to make sure. And then I'll tighten the clamp up, and it's going to come out flatter than the other two rings, I guarantee you. Now I can pull this off. Just that quick. Now that ring's pretty flat. Much flatter than the other two. We're going to let that dry for a few minutes, and then we're going to run them through the drum sander and clean up all three and take a look at them. So what have I got now? I've got three rings, all the same diameter. They've all got tight joints. Two of them were made with a half ring glue up, one was made with a single ring glue up. The big difference is the single ring glue up is flatter to start with. So what I'm going to do now is run them all through the drum sander and see what they look like after they get sanded off a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll get back after I've done. Boy, it's getting hot in here. I got the air conditioner and the fans off so I can video. Too much noise if I don't turn them off. So what have I got now? We've got three rings, all the same size. This one's got tight joints. This one's the one that was glued up, two pieces and then four and then eight. You can see all the joints are tight. It's the same diameter. This ring here, all the joints are tight on it. It's the same diameter. This is the one that was done with two dowels. gluing up 2 half rings. And this is a single ring glue up. Again, all the joints are tight and it's the same diameter. So really, there's more than one way to make the basic segmented ring. So it all depends on which way you like best or which way you find the easiest. And like I said, I started off gluing them up 2 by 2. Then I went to the dowel method, and then I finally went to the single ring glue up, which I find is quicker and easier. And of course, like I said, it does take a little bit of learning, especially on how to cut the segments to fit when they don't fit. Cut 1 or 2 segments. But there you have it. So if you got any questions or any comments, please leave them. You can send me email to ask me questions if you want. And I appreciate you watching the video. And come back and see me next time.